All right. Hey, so we're going to do a live. I really like these Q&As. Even when I'm talking in class and, sometimes it gets like a lull. It's not super exciting. I tell my students, ask questions. The cure for boredom is curiosity. I heard that somewhere and I think that's really, really good. So I don't have answers necessarily, but I'm going to try and find my way to them. And that's exciting for me. And I think a lot of people are subscribing to this account because it's like the process. A lot of you disagree with me on many things, and that's very valuable to me. But it's the process that I'm going through, and I'm so open about how I'm thinking that even when you disagree, you can kind of see it. And I think that's really, really beneficial. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump right into some of the questions, and then I have to go pick up my kid in a little over an hour. Here we go. I haven't looked at any of these yet. Let's see. Okay, podcast recommendations for kids and COVID, vaccine kids. Oh, geez. So there's really two schools of thought about where do you get your information on COVID and vaccines and stuff like that. And one is like the mainstream and one is the fringe. I think what you want to try and stay away from are the political sides. So I would stay away from anything that's like a political leaning. Brett Weinstein, as much as he is being kind of like vilified for his views on vaccines and stuff like that, he's a very heterodox thinker. He's not aligned with like a Republican talking point or a Democratic talking point. He has very progressive ideas and some now that are like considered conservative ideas. So I do think that the Dark Horse podcast has good information and they do cite it. So at the very least, because they are scientists, at the very least you can go from that towards information. But also Joe Rogan, again, another very controversial figure, not because of him, but because of the people he has on it. So he had Dr. Rhonda Patrick on, which is like a week ago, and which is when he said like, I don't have COVID or I didn't get COVID. And then he got it. But Rhonda Patrick is also not political. If he brings on someone like Ben Greenfield or someone like that, not political. Okay, they're scientists. These are experts in their field in health, and they can kind of guide you towards something. That's one option. That's like the fringe option. Oh, what's up, Amir? The other option would be the more mainstream. And then you look towards, like news podcasts. So it'd be like, ABC News or something like that. And I think that there's an avenue there. I'm sure there's some good medical podcasts and stuff like that. But I don't subscribe to a lot of those. I do like the fringe stuff. And it's just because it resonates with me. All right. What's this one? Let's compare how prohibition, wet versus dry groups. So that's like people who wanted prohibition of alcohol versus those who didn't. Wet were the people who were supportive of alcohol. Dry were the ones who wanted prohibition. The Volstead Act, the 18th Amendment, came about to something happening now. So prohibition is a couple of things. So prohibition, the lessons, and I love teaching prohibition, Al Capone and all that kind of stuff. Guys with the Tommy guns. Prohibition has a lot of important lessons. I think probably the biggest one is if there is a law that the citizenry is not behind, it will fail. Okay? If something becomes illegal that you want to do, so alcohol at the time, marijuana, drugs. The war on drugs, it's illegal, but people still do it, right? It doesn't work. And what it leads to is far bigger problems. Now, where I think the best connection to this is, and I brought up prohibition, is with ivermectin. Now, you're not supposed to say that word, and I'll probably get a banner just for saying it. Which is interesting. There haven't been, I think Oxford is working on a big, study on this. So long study with like double-blind placebo and all that kind of stuff. What's up, Justin? But there are studies. There's a great study out of I shouldn't say great. There's a study that's credible out of Israel, but it was a small sample size. It was like 94 people or something like that. But like all of them were helped with ivermectin. So there is data to show that ivermectin helps, but there's not like the gold standard data, but that will come out and then we'll figure it out. But what's interesting is people don't say that. People are either like ivermectin's great or ivermectin's terrible. Some of us are like, well, let's see. I don't know what it is. And I think that's the right approach. But going back to prohibition, what prohibition is, people wanted alcohol, so they're going to get it from anywhere they can. Okay? It's also why I'm for the legalization of drugs, because what happens is if you want to get drugs, or you need to get drugs because you're addicted to it, you will find a way. I would rather it be safe. You know, something that's dosed out, like what they do in Portugal. You want heroin? We'll come over here, we'll dose it out, we'll make sure it's pure, all that kind of stuff. But instead, you got to go to some dude in the corner or go to the hood and like deal with someone who has like impure things because it's been cut up a million times because people are, you know, struggling for money. So they're going to try and like stretch every bit of it out to make as much money as they can. It's really dangerous. People don't die just from, what's up, Samson? People don't die just from the drug. They die from all of the cutting agents and things like that. They die from the dirty needles and all that kind of stuff. So ivermectin, what's happening is people aren't able to get it. As soon as they say, can I get ivermectin? Doctor's like, no, it's bad. The news media is saying it's terrible, don't do it. But some of them are really, really sick. Okay, and they're really sick, and when sick people, just like if you're sick with addiction, you get desperate. These desperate people are going out and they're getting it, the kind that's made for animals. It's not just made for animals. It's a ubiquitous drug in a lot of countries, especially third world countries. I have family that's in Philippines, and they just can go buy it. So it's the people that are putting out there that it's just like a horse drug. You're lying. That's not what it is. But what's happening is people are going and getting that, and they're ingesting that somehow. And that's really, really dangerous because it's like going and getting your drugs from the street corner when we could just have a doctor make sure it's pure, go through the FDA, dose it out for you, and you won't die from it. You don't die from ivermectin when it's like prescribed the proper way. It's a very safe drug from my understanding. But what's happening is when you ban it, when you make it so taboo, then people still go for it anyway, especially if they're desperate. So that's, I think, a good comparison to what's going on now. And it's why I'm a history teacher, and it's why I get frustrated when people don't listen to history. All right, what else we got? Do I think there's a global conspiracy to avoid using ivermectin because it's cheap? Conspiracies. I don't know. I think conspiracy is that catch-all term now. I don't think there's like conspiracies like if you talk like a secret, kill team will come from the government. I think our government's very, very incompetent. So I don't think that. But let's use our logical brains, okay? Daniel, I think this is your question. Let's use our logical brains. So who has the most influence over our government of any industry? Hands down, it's the pharmaceutical companies. Okay, hands down. Okay, so they have $4.4 billion compared to the insurance companies, like stopping like universal healthcare and stuff, are only $2.2 billion. So this is the biggest influence. They have the most lobbyists too. 1,600 lobbyists for 535 members of Congress. So it's more than 3 each. Okay? Huge influence over the government. Okay? What is the point of a company? And I don't care if it's Nike or it's pharmaceuticals or it's insurance. It's not to help people. It's not. It's to make money. And not just make money. It's to make profit for shareholders. That's the point. And that's the gross element of capitalism. Now, I love capitalism. I'm a capitalist, but not the way it's going right now. So you compare that, okay, that massive influence. They don't profit from ivermectin. Okay, ivermectin is not patented, so anyone can just kind of put it out there. They don't make money from it. Okay, so that's something. I know people personally. I did a live with April, and then people mentioned and DM me, a lot of people, and I know people personally in my life who had COVID. It was bad. They were taking different medications. The only thing they changed was ivermectin, and it helped them significantly. Sometimes it was with monoclonal antibodies, sometimes it wasn't. But for me, it's like personal stories, some data, very little data to show that it hurts you. The studies that were thrown out, it's because they were done poorly, because there was like plagiarism and stuff like that, which is terrible. Okay, but there's some studies that hasn't been studied deeply. It's become politicized, And there's massive monetary incentive. So I don't know if it's a conspiracy theory, but I do think you follow the money. I think that's something that hopefully the left and the right can agree on, is follow the money. The money will lead you there. And there is an unbelievable amount of money in a company like Pfizer, if they wanted to take ivermectin, change tiny little things about it, patent it, and say Pfizer-mectin. They won't really call it that, but they'll keep it on the down low so they can make money off it. I don't know, but I don't think that that's completely unreasonable. And I think the term something like conspiracy theory means that it's completely unreasonable. And I don't think it's completely unreasonable, but I don't know. And I think in time, it'll play out. Just like, whatever it is, Jussie Smollett, I was like, he was absolutely attacked. And then and some people were like, no, he wasn't. And then it played out. This stuff, the truth finds a way. Reality bats last. And I think we'll know if ivermectin is good for COVID or not. We're going to find out. So let's just pause, let's have some grace, and let's see. Not ivermectin is great or ivermectin is terrible. Let's see. But the people who are super arrogant, making all these cartoons and stuff like that about how idiots think that ivermectin is working, have some humility. That's what I would say. Because you might be wrong and you might be right. I don't know. Your opinion on the outed political teachers. Oh, yeah. Okay, so this was Project Veritas, James O'Keefe at Project Veritas. I didn't watch it. I just saw little clips of it. A teacher, I don't remember, I think it might have been in Sacramento, but a teacher was talking openly about how he is like a Marxist and supports Antifa and stuff like that. That's fringe. Yeah, that's fringe. But teachers are more on the left side of the political spectrum, partially because of the way that we're made up, more openness to experience and things like that, a little softer hearted people and less conscientious in certain ways and stuff like that. So I think that that's fringe, but I think it taps into what a lot of people are feeling at the moment. We have to be teaching teachers. We have to have teachers teaching our students how to think, not what to think. So if you're an activist and you're saying, Marxism is the way, or you're a teacher and you're saying capitalism is the way, you better back that up with data, okay? Data, and then say to your students, prove me wrong. Here's what I think, prove me wrong. I do tell my students, here's what I think. I tell them how I vote and stuff like that. And I give them my reasons and I say, here is my reasons why. I don't expect you to think the same way. I'm open to giving me pushback. I don't really talk too much about how I vote, but if they would ask, I would be open about it. I'm pretty open book, as I am on here. So I think that we got to get the politics out of teaching. I think it's a real problem. And I think that's probably what it's tapping into that for some people. So this one it says couldn't share. How do you discipline students who misbehave while also maintaining a positive relationship? Oh, here it is. No, here it is. Okay. It's a very good question. I show my humanity. I show my vulnerability. I have a job. My job is to teach you things about the world. My job is to help you in this way and that way and that way. When you're being disruptive, it prevents me from being able to do my job. Okay. I have, 3 kids to feed. Okay. Help me with that. Also, getting to the root of why are you misbehaving in the first place? Are you bored? Are you bored? What could I be doing better? I show a lot of vulnerability, and that teenagers, as brutal as teenagers are, they respond well to vulnerability. From my experience, they respond well to vulnerability. When you're very open about things, very honest, and that takes some self-awareness. I'm a pretty self-aware person. So if it's like, I've said many times, this is the best I can do. This is the best I can do. Help me do it better. I'm trying my best here. And I'm obviously failing you because you're misbehaving, you're not paying attention in class. What can I do better? And a lot of times they don't know. It's like, yeah, so we're in this together, man. You don't know, I don't know. Help me out. Teenagers respond well to that stuff. They really do. They go like, okay, cool. He's a person. He's vulnerable. He's sometimes I'm like, you think I want to teach about the Wilmot Proviso or something like that? Some sort of like crazy nonsense from U.S. history. Like, it's the state standards though, man. I got to. I'm trying the best I can. What about you and I try and figure out the best way to teach this? So here you go. Here, take this thing, Wilmot Proviso. Go do some homework. I'll give you extra credit if you can help me find something interesting about it. You know, I've done all that kind of stuff. So I would say show vulnerability is the best way when you're dealing with misbehaving kids. Yeah, that's what I'd say. Let's see what else we got here. Recall election predictions. Ooh, exciting. I don't know. It's coming though. Man, California is wild. I think here's the problem. People don't like Newsom, but people often choose the devil they know versus the devil they don't. And they go, it's bad, but at least I know what I'm getting. If I get Larry Elder, who knows? It could be worse. Yeah, it could be worse. And it's pretty bad. I think it's bad for a lot of business owners and stuff like that. But I think the fact that it's not some heterodox Democrat or a heterodox Republican who looks like they're going to be the front runner or take the office. Because if you're not familiar, the way that California does it's really weird. Could be someone with a very small percentage of the vote. But you're not. You're getting like like Larry Elder is just, he's a talk show host. He's just like, toe the line Republican. And that doesn't rub, even the Democrats who can't stand Newsom, they don't want a toe the line Republican either. That's why Arnold Schwarzenegger actually, I think, won against Gray Davis in that recall. Is Arnold Schwarzenegger, especially back then, was pretty heterodox. He was a Republican, but he was very also progressive on certain things. I don't know. The options, the options aren't great. I don't know how libertarian Larry Elder is. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he is more libertarian than I give him credit for, but I don't know. The teachers unions are behind Newsom. I would like to see Gavin Newsom. I'll tell you how I voted. I voted to get rid of Gavin Newsom. I didn't vote for Larry Elder, but I voted to get rid of Gavin Newsom. My wife's a business owner, and that's a big reason why. When you're a business owner, you look at the taxes and the kind of regulations and stuff like that, the way that that's been implemented. I also don't like the super elite stuff. I don't like the fact that he's this super millionaire with all these super millionaire friends telling us to do all these restrictions, and then he's not doing them himself. That rubs me a really wrong way. I'm a very anti-elite hypocrisy kind of person. So we'll see. I don't know. My prediction, I'll call it dark horse. I'll say that Gavin Newsom gets recalled, just because I think that would be exciting. But I don't know. I'm terrible at picking bets. Don't bet with me. Oh, abortion. Okay, abortion. So it was just my questions on abortion. So the Texas law, right? Okay, I'll do a rant on abortion. I did a video and I posted it here. The arguments on abortion, we're talking past each other. Okay, so are you focused on the woman and the woman's freedom? It's pro-choice. Are you focused on the fetus and the baby's life? That's pro-life. And the pro-choice are only arguing about the woman, and the pro-life are only arguing about the baby. So we're completely missing each other on this one. Look, abortions are bad. They're bad. Does that mean they should be illegal? No, not just on its own. No, because there's a lot of bad things that are legal. But what we don't talk about enough is how sad abortions are. They're just sad. I had Christina Carney on my podcast, one of my early podcasts, and she's an abortion doctor now. And I got her to kind of admit that it's not ideal. It's an unfortunate situation. Abortions are bad because it's not ideal. It's a good question. You wouldn't, what did Jordan Peterson say? Something like, you wouldn't wish it on someone you loved. I hope one day you have an abortion. But there's a lot of things that would lead to an abortion. There's a lot of reasons why. Okay, and it's not I'm not just talking about like rape and incest. Those are like the straw man arguments that are generally put up there. But it's an unfortunate situation. I know women who had abortions. Again, this is anecdotal, but they're not happy about it. It's a very hard thing, and this is said also by pro-choice people. It's a very difficult decision. Yes, some people might be happy to get one, but I think that that's people who are diluted. I do. I don't think that that's people that are really aware of the impact of life and stuff like that. Doesn't mean that they're bad people. There's a lot of people that just aren't aware of certain things. I think that most self-aware, coherent people are going to go, this is unfortunate for a lot of different reasons. But how did we get here? How did we get here? Look, so growing up, I'm born in 1982, so I'm like a 90s kid. So I watched a lot of like Seinfeld and Friends, right? How ubiquitous is casual sex on TV in society? I mean, I was talking to my wife about this. Never once, until I was like in my 30s, probably mid to late 30s, probably when I started listening to Jordan Peterson actually, did I ever think that casual sex could be wrong. I never thought it like could be wrong. Okay, look, I mean, I'm just addressing something said in the comments. Like, if you're saying that the fetus is like bacteria, I think that that's a weak argument. I do, and I get that. I think that people, and I don't know you, but like I think that people grab onto arguments to prove their point, but you're losing some logic there. I think you're losing kind of your way. I think it's okay to admit that they're not ideal. That doesn't mean they should be banned. And if you do ban them, it's not like people won't get them. Go back to the prohibition argument I made. Like, people will still get abortions. They're just, now they're going to be more dangerous. Like, same reason, I fall more on pro-choice personally. Not saying you should, but I fall more on pro-choice, but largely because people will get them anyway. I'd rather them be safe. The same reason I'm pro-drugs. I'm not going to go out and do cocaine and heroin, but I would rather it be safe. Okay, casual sex. Yeah, so casual sex. It's great. Is it always great? Yes. Okay. Would you want your mother and sister to have casual sex with many different partners who didn't care about them? Not ideally. Again, not ideally. Ideally, you would want someone to have sex with someone who they love and can trust. Again, this is ideally. So if we look at the ideal, then anything from that is straying from it. That's the term for sin, is like missing the mark. So in some way, casual sex is not ideal, but it's so common now that you have consent to have sex. You can have sex with people that you don't even know their name. You don't know anything about them, and that's just normal. It's on Friends. It's on Seinfeld. I mean, I know this is a conservative, like, Christian talking point, but there's something to that isn't ideal. I don't want my sons going out and having sex with girls that they don't like. Having sex with girls just to do it. Yeah, sorry, students watching, but like in my past, I have had sex with women that I didn't know or like, didn't know their names. It's not good looking back. I'm not proud of that. And I know some people are, but I'm not. So again, this is just me. But this culture of it's all good to hook up as much as possible is going to lead to repercussions. Sex is a serious thing. This is what I'm going to talk about. That's right, you can unfollow me. Okay, that's what I'm going to talk about with my sons. I'm going to say, have sex with someone that you deeply care about. Okay, sex education is terrible. In schools, sex education is plumbing. You put this in here. That's like the one thing you don't need to know how to do. Our instincts take over for that pretty well. What we should be teaching is relationships. We need to be talking about intimacy. And we're separating intimacy from sexual intercourse. And I think it's a problem. This is my conservative side. Okay, but I'm also for pro-drugs and stuff like that. I just said I'm pro-choice, so whatever. Who knows where I am. I think that it's I think it's a problem. And I'm not saying it should be mandated or anything like that, but I think that we have to recognize this in culture, in our households, the way we talk to our kids about sex. I didn't get a sex talk. I think we should talk to our kids about sex. I think we should talk about intimacy. I think that we should talk about relationships. I think that's really, really important. And I think that we've gotten to this point where abortion is fairly common because it's of the commonplace of just casual sex. And I don't know if it's good. I think especially for women, I think there's biological issues. And, Sam Harris talked about this, who's a neuroscientist and stuff. There's biological issues around casual sex. And there's a lot of women who say, like, I just want something casual, but then they have this, like, cognitive dissonance of why they're upset when they see that guy is out with another girl or something like that. I think guys are less programmed. We're just, like, spread the seeds type of stuff. And I'm not saying that's good, but I think that's, like, our programming. It's like you want to have sex with multiple partners all the time just to spread your seed. And women have to gestate. They have to keep this baby. So they're more judicious on who they choose because they have to carry that baby around. And to not be judicious because we have contraceptions and stuff like that, it's hacking the way that our brains are designed. And there might be repercussions anytime we hack the way our evolutionary brains are designed. So I don't know. I think that it's something that we should talk about more and more and more. I could talk about this for a while. And again, yeah, you can disagree with me. I think that's wonderful. You can go on a live and give your own thoughts. Thoughts on Catholic teacher going around the internet for removing American flag? I don't know that. That might have been the same one that Project Veritas won. Yeah, teachers are political. I addressed that. What is this? Texas heartbeat bill. I just said. So I think the danger of this bill is people will get it anyway. And so I'm against it. I'm against that bill. And it's extremely constitutional. Because of federalism, Texas should be allowed to do whatever Texas wants because abortion is not mentioned in the Constitution. Okay? So the 10th Amendment says if it's not mentioned in the Constitution, it's deferred to the state. It should be a state issue. So it's constitutional to do it, for sure. But is it wise to do? Probably not, because people are going to get them, and we should be concerned about safety. The point of the Constitution, and the point of government, is to secure rights that people have. You can say abortion is a right, sure, but also to keep people, promote the general welfare. So keep people safe to some degree. And you got to measure off that security and freedom thing. But providing people with health care, I think, is really important. If people have an overdose, they shouldn't go to jail. They should go get fixed. It's a health issue. And I think if you want to get an abortion, you're going to get an abortion regardless. I want it to be a safe one. And I think this law is going to prevent that. And I think that 6 weeks is, just again, personally, 6 weeks is not long enough, because it's very valid that you could not even know you're pregnant 6 weeks. Like, you might miss a period, but women have all kinds of weird periods. Sometimes you miss a month and it's not a big deal. Sometimes you're late, you might miss a big deal. Yeah, Roe v. Wade, I mean, I get the point of it, but I don't think it's constitutional. I think it should be left up to the states. But I think a lot of Supreme Court decisions want to move power to the federal government. I think teaching, there shouldn't be a Department of Education. I don't think there should be a Department of Education. Or if they have it should be very, very weak. Because, by the way, big things that the Department of Education does, like No Child Left Behind and things like that, are terrible. Because we're unique states, and I think you want to try. The whole point of this country and federalism is you go to a state that represents you a little bit, and you're not going to get everything you want. I'm in California. I love the weather here. It's beautiful. I love beaches. I don't like the gun laws. I don't like the taxes, and I got to weigh that out. You want to go to Texas because it's like good on regulations and stuff like that. Maybe you're a gun person, but you're also a pro-choice person. Like, yeah, you got to weigh that out. You have to weigh this stuff out. You're not going to get everything you want, but you can move. Not everyone can move. Some people are poor. I know very poor people that can move. They get in their truck, they get in their car, and they move. You can, okay? It's hard. Lots of things in life are hard, but you can move. It just is uncomfortable, and you're not gonna like all the laws, and there's a process to do that. If you're in Texas and you don't like this law, you can change it. You can vote people in and change it. That's an option. We are a democratic republic. You vote in the people that will represent you. What is this one? Thoughts on people being refused organ transplants because they won't get a vaccine. I didn't hear that. I didn't hear that, but what I have heard about is people refusing like medical care, or saying you shouldn't get, if you get sick from COVID and you refuse the vaccine, then you shouldn't be treated. This is bananas, guys. What are you, nuts? There's someone that I know, I'm not gonna say who, but there's someone that I know very well, like personally in my life, who is as unhealthy a human being as you can possibly be. Okay? As unhealthy. I'm talking about congestive heart failure, type 2 diabetes, water in the lungs, severely overweight, severely, like well over 400 pounds, okay? Smoking, the whole thing, okay? And they go to the hospital from time to time because they can't breathe and stuff like that. And they treat them, and they're sweet to them. And they kind of nudge them into, hey, try and make healthier choices. But you don't get the vaccine, so we're not going to treat you, is a horrific idea. No. People are going to make choices. Some of them are dumb. Okay? If I go, hey, you know what? Check this out. I'm going to go up into my roof and jump off the roof, try and do a backflip, and I break my neck. He's an idiot. I'm not going to treat him. That is a dangerous, slippery slope. No. Let people make up their minds. Especially because several people, their doctors say, don't get the vaccine. Many doctors are recommending people don't get it because of past issues with certain things, or all our bodies are different. There are risks to the vaccine for some people. That's why, free and effective or safe and effective, that's way too short-sighted. If you're talking about growing it out over hundreds of millions of people, sure, but then what are your definitions of safe and what are your definitions of effective? Because a lot of people still get COVID and still get very sick from COVID with it. It all depends on your definitions. But refusing people medical care because they are making these choices that you deem reckless, that are arguably less reckless than me doing a backflip off my roof, or just making every unhealthy decision in my life I could possibly make, or having a drug overdose, or whatever it is absurd. My opinion. But I think that's a very dangerous road to go down. Let's see what this says. The 20 more minutes. I'm curious about the school community you work in. Do I share my views? Yes, I am in a very unique situation. I taught in a whole bunch of different situations. I've taught the richest kids in LA, the poorest kids in LA. I've taught all kinds of races and demographics, and trans kids and superstar athletes and actors and homeless kids and everything. I'm in a very unique situation now where I'm at a school that's awesome. It's a small school. It's part of a religious community, and they support everything I'm doing. So I'm very, very fortunate to be there. Favorite history subject or what inspired me to become a teacher? So I talked about my favorite subjects before. It's the 1960s. I think there was a time for a lot of change. I'm a progressive person, even though somebody would be like, no, you're not. I'm a progressive person. And I think the 1960s had a lot of potential for that. And I like the 1920s because I think there's a lot of good lessons from there. I love the Harlem Renaissance. I love prohibition, learning about that and the lessons from that. But there's a lot of, I just like U.S. history a lot. I also like government. I also like civics. So I just love what I do. What inspired me to become a teacher? Long story short, I thought it could be done better. I didn't have any teachers that I thought were living a life that I admired. And teachers in some way are giving you life advice. You should learn this stuff for your life. And I was like, what am I listening to you for? I don't want anything to do with what you do. So I looked at a lot of teachers and I thought, this is, we want to be credible. We want to be knowledgeable. We want to be capable people. Being capable is a positive. Knowing things is a positive. Not knowing things, feeling like an idiot is a negative thing, right? You want to be smart. Being smart is a good thing. Yet the institutions we've created to make you smart are miserable. That doesn't make sense to me. It didn't make sense to me. It's cool to be smart. I love the movie like Good Will Hunting. Came out when I was 15. It's like, wow, that kid's wicked smart. That's so cool how smart he is. But then the way to get there is through reading, and I was like, reading sucks. Like it wasn't connected for me, and I thought I can connect this way better than it's being done. And I think I'm pretty good at my job because I think my approach is different than a lot of teachers. Maybe because I wasn't, I wasn't good at school. Do I think Larry Elder has a chance of winning? I said that. Yeah, I mean, he probably, if Larry Elder have a chance of winning. Yeah, if Gavin Newsom gets recalled, I think he probably would be the one who's the front runner. What is this one? Let's see. Oh, it says couldn't share. Sorry. It was the studies on ivermectin have low power, poor design. Okay, yeah. So ivermectin, I discussed that. What is this? Chris Rufo is a white nationalist. Why do you gave him a platform? Well, first of all, I don't think Chris Rufo is a white nationalist. You can disagree with him. I disagree with a lot of the way he approaches things personally, but giving him a platform, I didn't. I would, but he wasn't on my podcast. I've never done an Instagram live with him. He's given me a platform, which is interesting. Chris Rufo gave my name to Fox News, and that's when I went on Fox News because he told them about me. And then I went on Fox News and I was trying to bring heterodox viewpoints that aren't just like alt-right, CRT is evil type of stuff. So Chris Rufo is cool with me. He's been very nice to me. He's helped me get my platform out. And if you don't like Chris Rufo, but you have some like inkling that maybe the stuff that's happening in a lot of classrooms is bad, then maybe he's Malcolm X and I'm Martin Luther King then. Like I'm a little bit like lighter, easier, more gracious with some of this stuff. So no, Chris Rufo is fine by me. I don't think he's a white nationalist. I think that's misrepresenting him. What is this one? Why do you astroturf your platform? I don't know what that means. Astroturf my platform. I don't know what that means. So, yeah, just, again, it's the language thing. Yeah, just communicate with me clearly. I'll explain to you why I do what I do with my platform. I'm doing the best I can. Is the Electoral College racist? The Electoral College racist? No, I mean, if you're going to say it's racist, you'd have to say it's racist against, okay. So you're saying because more urban hubs are more black and brown. No, it's not. No, it's not racist. Not everything is racist. That's one of my stances. Not everything is racist. So no, I don't think that the founding fathers said, let's have the Electoral College because it's racist. It's very clear what they were thinking. You can look at their thinking. You can look at their notes about the Electoral College. Okay. There are dangers of democracy. Socrates was against democracy. It doesn't say democracy anywhere in our Constitution. Okay, we are a democratic republic. Okay, or a constitutional republic, but I like democratic republic. We vote people in, but democracy is very dangerous. There's a tyranny of the majority, and that's in the Federalist Papers and stuff like that. Okay, you gotta watch out for that stuff. So no. But the Electoral College is good, and we should keep it. Absolutely. Our founding fathers were brilliant people, and they were not one side or the other. They disagreed strongly. They hated each other, but they found compromise and they agreed on the Electoral College. So, no. You don't want a tyranny of the majority, and you don't want a tyranny of the minority either. You don't. And we get that with billionaires and stuff like that. And that's a danger too. And I call out that one too. But people forget about the tyranny of the majority. Okay, if they said, hey, let's vote on whether or not we should have slavery in the South, we would have kept slavery. So not everything should be up for a vote, obviously. What is this one? Race versus gender as identities able to be fluid and malleable. Both are socially constructed. Well, Race is socially constructed, depends on your definition of gender. You could say sex is not, sex is biological, but then gender is socially constructed. I think that's confusing. I think that's very new, and I think it's a little sloppy, so we need to work our way out. It's like hardware and software. I can get on board with it. I think we just need to iron out some of those nuances, and I've tried. That's why I've had 6 different transgender guests on my podcast, but it's still quite sloppy when you separate gender and sexuality. It's just we're not in agreement on that. So race is a social construct, yes. Okay, okay, because we're all the same species. We're all Homo sapiens. We have different changes. There's not going to be a Samoan marathon winner, right? Like we have different things. Sickle cell anemia is higher in this. Vitamin D solubility is higher in this. All of that kind of stuff. So there are differences, but they're very minor. Just like there's differences. Some dogs are, Chihuahuas are more prone to this, and Great Danes are more prone to this. But a Great Dane can mate with a Chihuahua, and the physics of that would be hilarious because they're all essentially wolves. The idea that they're fluid. I think that what happens is if you say that you can go from one gender to the other, okay, then you can go from one race to the other, okay, but what are the repercussions downriver of that? There are repercussions, guys, okay? If you go to the doctor and you were born male and then you are female, you change your birth certificate and everything like that, and you have a big lump in your testicles or something like that, and you say, well, I don't have testicles. I don't know. This gets really sloppy. I don't know. And it might be messing this up. But like, let's say a woman has, something where she needs a, what is it? Like, where you have to get your uterus removed and things like that. I forget. What's that called? Let's say you have, one of your fallopian tubes or something like that. Okay, is like messed up, okay, and you're male, like it's gonna change the medical industry, and what all of this can do is slow things down. Okay, if you have a very serious problem in your fallopian tube, hysterectomy, thank you so much, thank you, hysterectomy. Oh, you guys are way smarter than me. Yes, hysterectomy. So like if you have something going on with your uterus, your reproductive system, but you're male, they're gonna have to run all kinds of tests that are male, and then they're gonna go, okay, well, oh, what could this be? Like, oh, well, that's because not just females have uteruses. Like, it's just gonna cloud things. Like, medical school is hard. Like, now you start changing all the gender stuff, it could get really, really complex. And what we need to be doing is solving problems. We have real problems. Slowing this all down is gonna make it harder. We gotta save lives, guys. So, I don't know. When it comes to this kind of stuff, the more fluid stuff, okay? This, like, no borders, no boundaries, no binaries. It's gonna get chaotic. And chaos is not efficient. And efficiency is how we advance. So I'm not saying that we're not gonna be able to be efficient with how we view race and gender, but we're not there yet. And it's gonna take a lot of conversation. And is it worth it? Maybe. It's a small part of the population, but we're all the ultimate minority as the individual. So maybe it's worth it. Maybe it's not. I don't know. We're not there yet. And right now it's going to slow things down. And I think we have real problems. Climate change is a problem. Okay? Obesity is a problem. Mental health is a problem. Violence is a problem. And if it slows that kind of stuff down, solving those problems gets slowed down because we're talking at nauseum about, fluidity in race and gender. I think that it's empire ending. I think it's how we mess this stuff up. Is that something that I think Douglas Murray is talking about, or Andrew Doyle? I forget which one, but these British guys, these smart British guys. But they were saying like, when empires end, one of the things they do is they become more gender fluid. So like Rome, ancient Rome, they got more gender fluid before Rome fell, but to the barbarians. There's that famous saying, Rome fell because they couldn't hear the barbarians over their air conditioning. It's Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and you focus on smaller and smaller issues. I know it's big to those people, but it's still smaller than like infant mortality rate. Okay, and you focus on those things, and you go off the rails because you almost get like more comfortable on Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Yeah. I talked about that teacher in Sacramento indoctrinating kids. Yeah, I think it's a problem. What is this? Texas abortion ban. Yeah, it's funny that libertarians are celebrating that. Yeah, that's an interesting one. Libertarians are celebrating that. I don't know. I think it goes against. It's constitutional, so maybe that's why it's libertarians celebrating it. But I still think the idea that women can't get it done. I think that you're going to have to argue that it's not about the woman, as I mentioned before. So I already covered that. How to have civil conversation with someone who is on the extreme other side. Well, this is what I'm trying to do all the time. And I actually have an Instagram. If you scroll through my my feed, I have stuff going back 3 years, little videos of me posing like, and then and they're like 3-4 minute videos, and I cover all this stuff, like how to have impossible conversations. What I would recommend, how to have civil conversation with someone on the extreme, is the Peter Boghossian, James Lindsay book, How to Have Impossible Conversations, a very practical guide. It's an excellent, excellent book. It isn't constitutional. I guess you could argue that leaving abortion up to the states isn't constitutional. I think that's a weaker argument. I think it's a better argument, regardless of what Roe v. Wade says. I think it's a better argument to say that things like education, abortion, privacy issues, a lot of things like that. I mean, as long as it doesn't include search and seizure, would be left up to the state. That's the 10th Amendment. The 10th Amendment's pretty clear that if it's not explicitly written in the Constitution, it comes back. It comes back to the states. That's what I would say. Let's see. Is there anything else here that I didn't cover? Let's see. What is this one? How much truth do I think there is to the claim that people who want to restrict abortion just want to control women? Some. But no, I don't. I mean, I think that there's a lot of reasons why you would support abortion. New wave feminists on here. Hernan De La Rosa. I forget her first name. I'm so sorry. I know your whole last name, but she makes the argument that it is actually a paternal, a patriarchy thing. She's a feminist, and she's pro-life feminist. She says that abortion is upholding the patriarchy. So it all depends. She's a very feminist, like a feminist, and she's very pro-life. So I think there's arguments to be made that if you support abortion, then more pregnancies are aborted than carried out of black babies in New York City. You could say that it's something to kill black people, and as Margaret Sanger had quotes about that and stuff like that. It's all over the place. This is the most contentious concept. That's why I tried to explain it the best way that I could. If you look up new wave feminists, and I put it on my stories board, new wave feminists. I did a podcast with her about 2 years ago. She's excellent. She has a lot of very feminist structured arguments about why she is pro-life, and she's all about making sure that if you can't have the baby, that it's going to be taken care of, and more government support and stuff like that. Okay, let's see. Do I support NX Ivermectin? I think it's Ivermectin. I think that's what that is. I talked about Ivermectin. What recent insight surprised you the most? Oh, that's an interesting question. Recent insight surprised me. Oh man, I don't have a good answer for that. I've been so busy, and I'm sleep deprived from the kid and stuff like that, from the baby. What always surprises me though what surprises me is when someone goes against the mainstream, when someone goes against their team, their party, their group, because it's scary, and very few people do. But I'm always inspired by that, and it's surprising, and I think it's wonderful because it shows thinking. I think ideologies are beautiful sometimes, but very dangerous because it gives you all the answers. And I think that what that does is take away thinking. And I'm a teacher, so I'm thinking like, let's just think. Let's always critically think. Challenge your ideas constantly. So that's the stuff that surprised me the most. I love that stuff when people take stances. I know what it is. A buddy of mine, George, who I've had on here before, maybe he was on here, he's an awesome guy from back in Pennsylvania. And he is very, he's kind of like MAGA and stuff like that. He's like very Republican. He's a business owner and stuff like that. And he said banning abortion is retarded, which is his kind of way of saying. But he is like pro-choice. And I was like, that's what I mean. All right, good for you, George. Yeah. Even whether or not I agree with you, I happen to. Whether or not I agree with you, I love when you go against your team. I love that stuff because it shows that you're thinking. Best book recommendation to learn U.S. history for adults who never learned history in school. Oh man, so U.S. history is so complex. So what I would say is you want to try and get a robust view. So, like Howard Zinn I use because it's the other side, but I don't think Howard Zinn's People's History of the United States would be the book to get. But I think getting like a traditional, oral telling of it would be good. And then, you can find like just like textbooks. Okay, it's fine. But then you supplement it with other things. I think like finding specific eras are better than just like one book on the whole thing because it's going to be too short-sighted. It's going to miss so many things. So I love Empire of the Summer Moon about the Comanche Indians. There's a lot of history books that I've read throughout, my like teaching and stuff like that are so good that just give you a little bit to grab onto here and there about different things. Okay, so I think that's it. Okay, I'm gonna bring in. I think there's someone who wants to join. Oh, Johnny. Okay, cool. I'll bring you in, and then I gotta get off in like 10 minutes or so. But I'll bring you in here. What's up, buddy?
What's going on, man?
We've never actually met. We've talked a little bit on DM.
Yeah, man. I'm looking forward to one day getting to a long form conversation, but I figure this is a good time to pop in and just virtually introduce myself and see if we can get a little back and forth about this whole Texas thing because it's complicated.
Yeah, are you in New York?
I am.
Yeah, I can tell.
Yeah.
So let's maybe like 10 minutes or so, and then I gotta go pick up my kids. So yeah, let's hash it out. Let's do it. What do you think?
That's perfect. Yeah. So this is a weird topic for me. Abortion is probably, if I had to pick any controversial topic, is the most undecided internally for me. I can't seem to. I wrestle back and forth, and I can't seem to find a spot that I'm comfortable in either direction. I don't consider myself pro-choice or pro-life. I think it's one of those things where you kind of have to just make a compromise, and where the compromise is kind of the nuts and bolts here. So this Texas thing, I don't know. I didn't get your full take on it yet. I'm interested to hear what you think. But I think 6 weeks is, if we're going to make a compromise, if we're willing to say like, it can't be at contraception and it can't be 8 months and 29 days, the extremes are ridiculous. Where do the adults in the room say we make the line? The line's arbitrary, and there's a lot of emotions on both sides. And where is it fair is I guess the best way I could put it. I think 6 weeks is too soon. I've always thought 3 months in my head, but I don't know if I can make a particularly strong argument of why I feel that way. I just think it's enough time that if you're responsibly having sex, keeping the consequences, even if they're unintended, in mind, that you should be able to monitor and know before that and take care of it before it becomes so developed that it's as gruesome as it becomes past that. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Like just saying where you're like, you can't find a way to do this. I was watching Jordan Peterson's thoughts on abortion a long time ago. One of the, he said a Leonard Cohen quote: "There's no good place to stand in a massacre." And I think that's what I was saying about abortion is a negative. When people are saying like, no, some people are happy to get an abortion. You should be proud of your abortion. I think those people are not fully.
Hopefully that's fringe, but that's disturbing.
Yeah, it's definitely fringe, but it's also I think those individuals are overcompensating for they're not really looking at what's going on. That's my opinion. I'm not a psychiatrist, but but it's an unfortunate situation. I got an abortion doctor to admit that it's not ideal. The ideal would be that every baby is brought into this world in a loving household.
Yeah, but we're not. Yeah,
we're
not dealing with reality there, of course.
At least we have an aim, right? Let's aim for that. But yeah, your question about the time period, 6 weeks is, I mean, it's very possible that, you go 6 weeks.
I'm sorry, the connection got a little rough there. I'm coming inside to hope the Wi-Fi is a little better. I lost you there for a second. So I was asking, what is your arbitrary line, I guess?
Oh man,
I would vote when we make rules. We have to pick a line, right?
Yeah, it's all about lines. All this stuff is about where we draw lines on everything. And I've had several trans guests on my podcast, and they all have their lines about what is too far, woke, when it comes to the trans issue. So, because everyone's gonna have a line. If you don't have a line, well, you're gonna fall off the cliff. So I think mine is when the fetus is viable. I think if you're gonna say that it can survive on its own, then that is when it wouldn't be something that belongs to the woman. It would be something that it's an autonomous, sentient being. And what is that? Gets better and better, then that line's going to get moved. But I think for me, that's my line. And that's kind of was the idea why it was 3 months. Because I have friends who had a baby at 20 months, which is roughly about, or 20 weeks, I'm sorry, it was roughly 3 months and the baby survived. So I think that's my line.
3 months?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of. I didn't know I didn't know it was even viable on its own at that point. My nephew, who's one of my favorite human beings in the world, was born at like 6 months and super tiny, fit in my hand. But I think a lot of people, they block out or don't even think about what it actually is. When some of these places where they do late-term abortions, I mean, it doesn't evaporate. You don't just click a button and it goes away. This isn't video games. Like, they are literally, not to be gruesome, but the fucking hard truth is they are going in there, cutting this thing, whether you want to call it a baby, a fetus. I've heard people call it a parasite, which is super creepy. But they chop it to pieces and vacuum it out and then sell the body parts, we found out. So, that's not something that should be taken lightly. I think both sides have this issue of no compromise, like everything else, where one side is pushing their religious moral beliefs on the other and saying it's like contraception and that's it, which I think, it's not fair to push your religious beliefs on other people. The other side is saying it's reproductive rights, but at some point it is no longer you. It is another living thing. I think that maybe I would like to see more honest people on the left admit that it is murder, but maybe that they're okay with that. If that doesn't sound horrible, murder in some cases, self-defense, death penalty we deal with. Maybe if we stop saying it's not murder, and maybe that it's acceptable murder in some form, that we can have a more honest debate about it. It seems like we're kind of straw manning both sides when they argue. Like, no one's mowing down babies with machine guns that they call baby murderers. From what I understand, majority of abortions happen very, very early. And the same thing with the other side. What about rapes? And that's less than 1%. So, typical straw man pointing in both directions. I find myself struggling. I think I'm there with 3 months, which is not going to make either side happy. But unless you plan on just fighting this out till the end of time, there needs to be a compromise number.
Yeah. Well, you're gonna find a ton of hypocrisy when you're not being honest, when you're just trying to defend your point because you're worried about slippery slope taking away rights or something like that. I mean, if you murder a pregnant woman, you can get charged with double homicide.
Yeah.
The arguments for late-term abortion are, well, that's so rare. It never happens. But the idea that it is legal. So here's
and the partial birth abortions. That's
if it's legal. Not saying that. I understand that statistically never happens. But if it's legal, that as the baby is coming out, it's, before its head is there, you can look at, like, my wife just had a baby, so it's like, hey, if you do terminate that pregnancy, you kill that baby as its head is in the vagina and the birth canal. If that is legal, not saying, again, doesn't happen often, it's statistically zero, but if it's legal, that says something. If it's legal to do it, that says something about how we value life. And just having something legal, even if it is impossible. If we
It does
say
happen, though. It's not zero.
Torture a dragon, right? And you say dragons don't exist, or torture a unicorn. Okay, but you're still saying that. How do we value mythical creatures then? Like, I don't know if you're following what I'm saying here, but just having the law there, even if it doesn't get used, I think still sends a message. I guess.
But I think that it's not 0-0 like it does. I'm sure it's very rare, but it does happen. And I've heard stories of people that worked at clinics that even there were some situations with partial birth, abortions didn't work, and the baby is left to die more or less in like a room, like in a pan. And I've heard firsthand accounts of that, which is just disturbing. Like, it's really fucking disturbing. Excuse my language. And I think that the brutality of it has to be acknowledged, and you have to, that's going to be your position, that you're pro choice, then like you have to own that and say that you're willing to accept that level of brutality, because you think that, I guess in some ways, we're just animals and it's just one, whatever. It's a cluster of molecules, what do they call them? A cluster of cells, and it doesn't mean that much.
All the time.
It's also super interesting when you see celebrity. So I'm not going to name him in person because I don't like speaking on people's women. But I saw a super famous celebrity who's overtly pro-choice and very left have a miscarriage and really mourn it. And that was interesting to me. And I was like, well, is it like a choice on whether or not that thing inside of you is valuable or not based on your opinion? Like your way of looking at it is very interesting. Like, I don't think she's ever self-examined herself, and that's it for that, because it's very seems hypocritical to be so upset about something that you considered was going to be a life, so that you valued it, but you would be okay with somebody else who didn't want it to be a life ending it. Like, it just seemed hypocritical, like a lot of the things that I see now. I think the abortion bill in Texas, though, is going to cause a ton of problems, and I think that 6 weeks is at that point where you could easily not know, you know what I mean, and be 7 weeks pregnant. You miss one.
I think it's going to be a problem. I think it's not what they're thinking. A lot of these arguments, Johnny, I think a lot of these arguments is like, if we do this, then people will become responsible. And it just doesn't work.
History
like
doesn't.
You have to learn how to be responsible. Oh, if abortion is illegal, then people just go, you know what? I'm going to raise this kid and be a great parent. It's like, no, that's not
great
the way.
Black market abortion is probably more likely.
Yeah, they're going to find some other way to do it. And then the way the law works, where it's like a bounty hunt, basically, to like go after the doctors and sue them. It's a mess. And I don't know.
What's the solution?
We're not willing to talk about it. It's such a contentious issue. This is like the biggest one, right? I think I'm with you.
What's the solution?
I don't know. I think I guess what I would say is the solution is federalism, and you just say certain states, you aren't going to be able to do it. You're going to have to get back alley abortions. It's really bad, really dangerous. And other states, like, come to California, you can get abortion anytime. I think that's the only way. I think our founding fathers were right. I think that we have these own little governments, these own little places. I don't want to move to Bangladesh. I don't want to move to Iran. I want to stay in America. And it's great and it's bad, but just like how each country has positives and negatives, I don't want to move there because of these reasons. I do want to move there because of those reasons. I think that the deal of America is all these states have individual things. They have positives, they have negatives. You weigh those out. Like the gun laws and stuff like that. I don't think the gun laws are great here. And I have friends who just go, you know what? I'm carrying a gun anyway. It's a misdemeanor. So I'm going to carry a gun anyway. And I'd rather get, judged by 12 than carried by 6. So I'm going to carry a gun, and they carry them illegally. People are going to do it anyway. And that gets really gnarly when you're talking about a medical procedure.
Yeah, for sure. I think I agree with you there. I think that we have this 50 different experiment thing. Let it run its course. don't interfere. But if you're going to interfere, make a hard number and maybe subsidize certain things that incentivize not doing the wrong thing. If I'm speaking from a moral standpoint, forgive me, but like if you can do something along the lines of subsidizing pregnancy tests. So if you know you're sexually active, you know you're having sex, if you have half a brain, you know what could be the consequence of that. You know, if you give out free pregnancy tests, many people are more likely to stay on top of that. And it's not a surprise pregnancy 2-3 months in. I think it's not much to ask. And if you know the rules in place, listen, 3 months, the hard cutoff. 3 months and 1 day is too late. If you're having sex, whatever, no matter what, if you're sexually active, you know, it's not a lot to ask, especially if it's subsidized and it's free, to once in a week piss on a stick. Like, you know what I mean? To make sure that you're not going to have to, you know, go through something horrible or carry out a baby that you don't want or go through this horrible process or whatever it is. There definitely needs to be some individual responsibility on one side and less kind of moral.
But we don't focus on responsibility much. And that's the thing. We've been so focused on rights, justifiably, because, you know, rights were denied for so long that we don't think about that. It has to be with freedom comes responsibility, rights and responsibility. Someone mentioned the 14th Amendment. 14th Amendment is equal protection under the law. And I get it. I get the idea behind, you know, using these things, but it's all into how you interpret it. You know, like it's privacy was the argument for Roe v. Wade. I just disagree with that it's constitutional. And look, there's a lot of things. Locking people up in Japanese internment camps was deemed constitutional with Korematsu versus the United States. It's bad. It's a bad decision. I think that I'm pro-choice, but I do think also it needs to be up to the states if we're going to be following the Constitution. But it's a tough one, man.
Do you think, before you go, I know you're short on time, do you think that federally, because there are some things that we deem, like, no matter what the state says, you know, the federal is going to override it. Do you not? I do believe this, so I'm wondering, and I haven't figured out exactly where it is, maybe at 6, that there should be, regardless of what you let people do on the states and their individual levels and make their own lines or whatever it is. Listen, Texas can be as strict as you want. You don't like it, move to California where you can go do what you want to do. But do you think there should be a cross-the-board hard line where we're like, this is ridiculous, at 8 months? Like, I think most people, I can't imagine most people looking me in the eye and saying an 8-month, 29-day baby should be allowed to be aborted. I think that 99% of people will be like, that's not okay. Like, so, and we can work our way backwards from the extreme. What about 8 months and 28 days, 27, until eventually we get to a number where it starts to get contentious. Where do you think there should be a line? And if so, where would that line be where federally we have to just override everything and say, listen, once it's past 8 months or 7 months, it has to be murder. It has to be illegal at that point. Carry it out or whatever it is.
At some point, if the head is out, is that murder? If the pinky toe is still in, is it considered murder? Is it 5 minutes afterwards? Is it considered murder? What needs to happen? And this won't, because everything is politicized now, but you need to get scientists and doctors to all come in agreement of defining when life begins. That's that. But I don't think we're there yet.
Yeah, but if you don't mind asking, if it's too personal, and I understand, but where do you think the line, do you think there should be a line federally that says this is too extreme? And if so, where would that be?
Well, so the tricky thing is you need to allow late-term abortions if, like, the mother is going to die. Like, you need to be able to do that. So
not to cut you off, sorry, but because we had this argument earlier today, not an argument, but we were having a healthy debate in my own household because we were talking about the rape exclusion, which is obviously very rare also on the other side. But then you open up the thing of people like faking rape to get the abortions. I could see it becoming a thing where, because they already do that, where they'll still use like the mother's anxiety as a reason for abortion because it's affecting her health. And it's like, now we get to a whole nother fucking thing where we draw the line. But excluding that, right? Excluding the extremity, the outlier, which we'll always have a carve out, maybe an amendment for. In regular circumstances, where do you think?
I don't think that there can be, I mean, like, there's always going to be a situation, even as the baby is coming out, if something happens where the mom goes into, I'm not a doctor, I don't know, there could be something where they go, we got to terminate this baby so the mother survives. That needs to be allowed to happen at some point, so the doctor can make that call and not get, charged with, like, manslaughter or something like that. So I don't know.
Pregnancy?
What?
that a real thing that happens during delivering a baby?
I don't know. I mean, it could. What if she's bleeding out or something like that, and the baby is stuck or something? They can't get it. It's like she's in labor, and if they don't like dismember the baby or something like that, then she will die. I don't know. But I'm saying if it is, then we gotta work that out somehow. So I just think that we have to go. It's going to be sloppy, but if you have options, it's better. What centralized control of this stuff, when you put it all up to Washington, D.C. to make these calls, then you don't have options. And America is supposed to have options where California feels differently than Texas does, and Mississippi feels different than Wyoming. So you can go to a place where you're like, okay, these are like my people. This is my little tribe. This is my colony. It started as colony. This is our colony. This is our community. And you're not going to get everything you want, but if abortion is really important to you, you should be in an area where that is like, celebrated the way that aligns with you. I think that's just the only way to do it. And I think that's why our founding fathers were brilliant to think of it that way. Yeah.
I agree. I don't see this getting any better anytime soon. And
maybe conversations like this. I think as long as we have open minds, I'll change my mind more and more. Because I'm pro-choice, I listen to a lot of like Ben Shapiro, who makes really good arguments and stuff like that. I value the people on here who are making arguments and stuff like that to try and like lean me towards being more pro-life.
But the problem with Ben's arguments are, and I love Ben Shapiro for
actively seek out the best arguments for pro-choice. If you're pro-choice, actively just bombard yourself with more arguments that are pro-life.
I've been using your steel man phrase a lot lately. I actually really like that. And I think Ben Shapiro is probably the best steel man you can do if you're on the left. You just watch him, and then it's really tough because his argument is pretty fucking airtight. But the problem that I have with him in some regards, especially with the abortion argument, is that they all come from a religious standpoint. And he's very open about that, and that's to each his own. But you can't broadcast your religious views across, other people who have different religious views than you. You know what I mean? It just,
yeah. No, I hear you. I gotta go. Just so glad we got to meet. We should definitely.
I hope we can do a long form podcast soon.
Do it, yeah, for sure. And for everyone else on here, thank you for tuning in. I value you tremendously. This was really, really fun. I'll put it up on my feed, and you can share it and do whatever you want. But just going through the process is good for me to kind of develop it and deal with all of your pushback and stuff like that. Thank you guys.
It's super important.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you so much, John. Take care.